Hello, is that Andy?
Yeah. Hi, Katie. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, 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 good.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
glad I'm glad someone joined. I wasn't sure if I had it set up right. I
I,
mean,
I think it's correct. So it's very easy to follow your instruction. No worries.
okay, good.
Yeah, yeah. So are you recording too?
I am recording. We have to record our committee meetings now for democratic issues,
Oh,
and
okay.
they'll be posted. It'll be posted online. I'm hoping we can edit it though to only show once the meeting starts and is called to order. I'm hoping we can edit it.
Okay. Not a problem at all.
But it's
Yeah.
fine for, you to stay muted or without video the whole time unless you are speaking, or you can stay unmuted and have video. Either way, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Okay. Sounds wonderful. Good to know. Yeah, I think I will just mute myself until I have something to say.
Okay,
Yeah,
sounds good.
yeah. And then I think when you set up, you can also set up like a waiting room.
Mm-hmm.
So people have your approval, they can enter the meeting.
Yeah, I was thinking of doing that. The only reason I haven't is because I'm not sure members of the public might join, and I wouldn't really have a way of knowing if they were legit or if they were going to bomb the meeting. So I feel like I don't know if it would really help or not.
Okay.
But
Yeah, it makes sense. I was also thinking about that. Maybe, it's open, like open to the public.
mhm.
So you probably have no way to verify.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask the IT people about that if there's a trick to that. Only the people who have the information should be able to join, but that can be anyone who goes to the city website and gets it from the agenda page. So
Yeah, that's
it's
very
true
true.
that it is truly public.
Yeah.
So far, we haven't had any problems that I know of with all the meetings that people have been having. So yeah,
Okay.
we'll see.
Okay. Sounds good. I also
Okay.
that day I email Mike about other possibilities too. So if we have any privacy concern about using Zoom, I
Mhm.
think they are like Microsoft. They have Teams,
Yeah, yep. We use
and
that internally and I like it a lot. And I've also had some meetings with other organizations on Teams as well.
yeah, and then also I think Google they have like a Google Meet,
Hmm. Yeah.
and Cisco they have a WebEx. So I know the city pay for using Zoom,
Hmm.
but if paying, and we still have the privacy concern, I think we can consider, switch it to another one.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's worth talking to Mike about for sure.
yeah. I email him back and give him, these suggestions, but I don't know if he would, like consider that. Just a FYI, because I think it probably would be easier for you
Hmm.
to like talk to him and suggest something.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can bring that to him at length next Wednesday at our staff meeting, but I mean, I can email him anytime and discuss it with him.
yeah.
So,
If we have a budget like a concern, I
hmm.
think Skype is also a very useful one, and we don't have to pay anything,
Hmm.
and you can still host a big group meeting too.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so that's
that's
what I think.
yeah, there's definitely other options.
Yeah, yeah. And then I don't see any like a privacy concern about those software
Hmm.
or those companies that's US based.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So okay,
I'll talk to him about it.
okay. So yeah, hopefully I do read your email and see you talk about your cousin.
Oh,
Uh,
right, yeah.
yeah, and I hope that your family all well, everything like everything goes smoothly for your family and yeah, and yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, so far my immediate family, we've all been well, and my cousin's at home. He's recovering. It's just really slow when you've been on a ventilator. And he was laying on his back for about 6 or 7 weeks.
Oh
So
wow.
he lost 40 pounds, and he was very trim. He wasn't
Oh my.
overweight at all when he went into the hospital. So he's got a long road, but they think he'll make a full recovery. So it's just going to take months probably.
Okay. Yeah. I think stay healthy and keep calm.
Yes.
Yeah, and we will go beyond this.
Yeah. Yes.
That would be yeah. I talked to my wife because I have 3 kids, and it's pretty difficult to manage their process, especially they cannot go to school
Hmm.
and they don't know how to use like iPad or laptop to learn, talk to
Hmm.
their teachers. So when like 30 minutes or no, every minute, or they will always have a question: how do you spell this?
Yeah.
How should I? So it's a lot of work.
Yeah. I know it. The school stuff is hard, I find, to do that and work. It's been really difficult.
Yeah, yeah, and especially in the same space.
Yes. No
Yeah.
kidding.
So you probably have some, like a background noise, from my family. But I will, mute myself until, we have something I want to discuss.
Okay. That sounds
Just,
good. That's fine.
say hi to everyone.
Yes. There's a few people on. Oh, I see. I think Chris and Katie.
Yep, I'm here.
Hi, Kelly. How you doing?
Pretty good. Right before this call, my youngest son jumped up and hit the bottom of my older son's chin, and so he bit his tongue really hard.
Oh dear.
There was a lot of yelling and crying and stuff, but I think they're better now. I don't hear them.
They fainted from the pain.
Yeah.
Did I see you? I didn't see you on a bicycle today, did I?
No. I wish. I really wish.
Have a doppelganger.
Oh, yeah, I have a great bike that I haven't been riding. I've been walking a lot, but not riding. I don't know why.
Me too. I've got to get the tires pumped up.
Yeah, me too. I think we'll wait for a couple more minutes. I think Spencer and Lee and those two are coming.
Do we have a quorum without me?
Let me see. I think so. There's Spencer, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is a quorum, isn't it? If we have 10 members.
Okay.
One
The only reason
non-
I ask is I saw on the agenda that you want to have the minutes from January approved, and I wasn't at the meeting in January, so I don't feel I can be part of that. So I just wanted to make
Okay.
sure there was a quorum outside of me for that part of it.
Yeah, I think we will have one.
Excellent.
Can you see me and hear me?
I can.
Yes
Okay.
and yes.
Can you all see the screen that I've shared? Is it coming up on your laptop?
Yes.
Okay.
Page 71, page.
I'm
Yeah.
going way
Flipping
back.
fast now.
Yeah, great.
How's everyone doing?
Good. How about you?
Good. Good. You guys, everyone staying safe and keeping her occupied?
Busy as can be.
Yeah.
What happened to Daphne? I thought she was there.
I think
Was.
she is. Yep, she's there. She's still there.
Oh, there she
I
is. Okay.
just mute my audio so like there's no back.
Okay.
Have all of you used Zoom during this, or, use Zoom at any time, really? Is there anyone who hasn't used it, who has questions about navigating it?
I've watched some seminars with it, but I haven't been that active in participating. I think I had to ask questions by typing them out.
Oh, right, in the chat. Yep.
Yeah.
I think we're such a small group, we can probably unmute ourselves and discuss or break in.
Okay. Yeah.
There is a chat, though.
Yeah, I see in the bottom bar. Yeah.
Yeah. And then also, it's usually just a good practice that you mute yourself unless you're talking. I mean, if we're having a lively discussion, that's fine. But if there's background noise, sometimes even just rustling papers, which doesn't sound loud to you, it really is loud on the speakers. So
Yeah.
I'll even mute myself if I'm hoping that
I see
Mark
we have 11 participants. Is that right? We have 11 people?
Yes,
Yeah.
we have, I think, a member of the public.
Two of them.
perhaps.
Two of them are me. I use my smartphone for the camera and the desktop for the big screen.
Yeah, but you don't get two votes, Kermit.
Right, I thought that's what I was trying to stack the deck. Come on, Richard.
Okay, I'm going to mute.
Okay. Yeah, I guess we could probably get started. We definitely have a quorum now, and I was hoping that Mark Wegner would be on. He said this time worked for him, and I let him know that we were having the meeting at this time. And Matt Amundsen knows about it, although it's his birthday, so I wasn't expecting him to join. But it'd be helpful if Mark was on so that we could ask him questions about the plan. And he could also explain, maybe what he's looking for. Anyway, I can talk about it when we get to it.
Is there a show of hands for how many people actually went to the presentation when it was presented at City Hall?
Literal
You got a
show of
fuss?
hands.
So it's good. At least there's some background on it.
Yeah.
Dick, do you want to unmute yourself? I don't know if you want to or not. There you go.
Okay, I'm going to mute myself, and I think we could probably get started, Spencer.
Okay.
I'm going to
Call the meeting to order. Do we need an official roll call, or you guys see enough the names of everyone on here?
I think I can get it from the names I see on here. Yeah.
Good. And is this recorded or this is not recorded?
This is being recorded right now. We have to by, I don't know if it's law
Public
or
records.
best practices but for record, yeah.
Good.
And
All right, just so everybody knows, we're being recorded.
And if anyone wants to not be shown, you can definitely take yourself off of video. That's fine. That's perfectly acceptable.
Okay, so we got the call the meeting to order. We'll look at the minutes from last time. Anybody have any comments, objections, questions on the meeting minutes from last time? Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
All right, so
I'll second.
Richard moved them. Lee, is that a second? I see your mouth moving.
That was a second for me, yes.
Okay, Lee seconded. All right, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
I don't oppose, but I abstained because I wasn't at the meeting.
Great. And abstain. All right. Good. So it passes. Let's move on to staff updates. Kelly.
Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna give a very brief update, and then I think I am planning to hold a regular sustainability meeting the third Monday of May like this again, and we can have a more full agenda and have more of discussion. I really wanted to keep this short and sweet. It's our first time back together using Zoom, and get this Pheasant Branch Creek Corridor Master Plan recommended or commented on for City Council on this coming Tuesday. It's nice to see you all. It's been a crazy few months. We haven't actually met since January, so it's been a while. And we've been really busy. The sustainability works continued, although we've really pared it down to prioritizing finishing the Green City section of the comp plan. We're hoping to have a draft ready to send out to committees for review at the end of May on that. And that's really the planning department's major priority right now. So that's one of the top things. The other things that I'm working on are the Lead for Cities grant. We're in the heavy data collection mode right now, which is interesting, doing everything via Zoom and meetings with different departments and with the planning team. But it's going fine, it's going well. I think it's looking good. I'm not concerned about that yet at all. I think there's some interesting credits that I think we'll be able to achieve that I can talk about at another meeting further down the road. I'm also wrapping up the OEI grant, just doing the final grant report and trying to think of a way to roll out the energy plan that Slipstream has written for us as part of that 7 community energy plan grant, collaborative grant. I need to roll it out internally with our departments, but then also, and to you guys, and I'd like to make a presentation to council, but then also how to take it public. It's more municipal focused, but there are some community initiatives in there, and I also think it's a good opportunity to help educate the residents and the community about our energy goals and celebrate our successes, and then also get everyone on the same page for where we can make the biggest change with data to back it up. So that's exciting, but I haven't figured out how to do that in quarantine yet. Then the other things that have been on hold, which we can talk about at the next meeting, are things like the single stream plastic reduction committee that we hope to form. And another thing that is coming down the pipe that might be an interesting and good timing in a way, even with the pandemic, is that our tourism department is rolling out a new rebranding of Middleton. They've hired a company to help them with this. And as you can imagine, tourism has taken just a massive hit during the pandemic. There's no, business at the hotels, and it's really nerve-wracking for Julie Peterman, who's our tourism director. So I mentioned to her that it might be a good time for a couple sustainability folks from the committee to have a conversation with her on how sustainability fits into Middleton's branding and how we talk about our community. I got really excited when I heard Daphne and Lee and Spencer talking to Kate Wicker from the Chamber, I think a couple months ago now, about that plastics potential to work with businesses about plastic reduction in Middleton, and the idea of when people come to Middleton, what do they see? What are their takeaways? And I want sustainability to be one of them. So that might be something we could work on in the next month or two with Julie in the tourism department. And
I'd love to meet with her when the time comes.
yeah, that'd be great. I'll keep
Kelly,
you.
when you say, this is Chris,
Mhm.
when you say you want to see sustainability with regards to the branding of the city, what does that look like to you?
Well, I really like, well, Spencer gave a good example of how when you go to, was it Steamboat Springs or what, there was a town in Colorado. And when you're there, you see so much recycling infrastructure, and there's actually people out on the street almost greeting you to help you with your recycling. There's the, Spencer and Lee had the idea of having water bubblers downtown, and water bottles around in different restaurants, where if people go to different places, they keep seeing this water bottle with a logo, and they see these water. It's sort of you notice it. Maybe in the future we'll have B-Cycle in Middleton. And so more about, we want to show people that we walk our talk by what you see and what your experiences are when you come into the town. And also just through the literature, we are sort of a destination town for people to come to. So it'd be nice if sustainability was prominent in the literature through tourism. I keep pushing that in all of our community development meetings, that people do recognize us as a leader in sustainability. And so I'd like to find ways to make that more visual or more known in all ways. I don't know what all ways we could work on it.
Yeah.
Chris,
Sounds good.
just to add on to that, Lee and I were talking, when you go to Steamboat Springs, you don't leave the city without knowing that they're sustainable, right? You go to the grocery store and they're going to charge you 30 cents extra for a shopping bag, any bag, and 20 cents goes to the city, 10% goes to the retailer, or 30 and 10, whatever, somewhere right around there, right? You go to the chalet, and there's a guy who when you hand the trash, like, they don't have trash cans everywhere. They have one counter. You bring your stuff to it, and one person sorts all your trash, so it gets sorted. When you're down at the base of the mountain, there's a water bottle jug, but they don't have any cups to get water. You have to have your own container to get water. And on a ski resort mountain, they could charge $10 for a bottle of water, single-use plastic, and do it. But it's really in your face, and that was what we were kind of, when we were talking about with the chamber, like, how do we make it where it's something where people go and it's like, oh wow, this is amazing what they're doing here, right? And to do that, it has to be the buy-in of the businesses and everybody else. That's kind of what we're talking about.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing all that. That's helpful.
Yeah.
Say, I was wondering, is there some kind of a green certification? Because I've seen that with, like, B&Bs. They have some green certification because they're sustainable. Is there something that a city could get, or some kind of designation, or is there a group that has that designation with a list of kinds of things you do to be sustainable?
There is a certification, I think, through the hotel industry. And I think a lot of the hotels have been a part of that. And then we'll have our LEED designation. We'll be certified at some level that we can really advertise around town. And then there's also a certification for restaurants on sustainable initiatives that they have within their restaurants, and they have to meet a certain number of criteria in order to be able to, like, put the logo on their restaurant window and stuff. And it means something when you see that, that, oh, this restaurant doesn't use, so much plastic. This restaurant also harvests or only sells fish that are sustainably harvested, that kind of thing. There's probably more. I'm sure there's more. But anyway, that's all that I was going to update. I'll go and I'll be more extensive in our sustainability meeting in a couple 3 weeks.
Great. All right. So if we move on to the corridor master plan.
One question. One of the big items that was hanging from the last meeting is like, okay, we're going to really focus on was the sustainability plan. Do you have anything to just mention in passing there, Kelly, or what? Not just the green part of the city plan, but the
sustainability
big kahuna we were talking about.
Yeah, that is a big kahuna. I would love to discuss that at length in our next meeting. I don't have any updates right now on it. I haven't done anything on it since going into quarantine in mid-March. So I do think it's a group effort, and we'll have to talk about if we want to proceed with that right now or put it off for another couple months or split it up and have subcommittees who work on chapters, or just how we approach it. I do think it's a bigger conversation. I'd love to work on it. I know I don't have any extra time or bandwidth right now with just the situation working from home and these other things on my plate, but we certainly need to talk about it and come up with a game plan. I'd be really interested to hear what you all think about that in May.
Sounds great.
Okay.
One other question, and that is, I know you were working on Wisconsin Bird City. Did we
Yeah.
get that done? And
I have not turned that in, and it's my fault. There's so many things I feel like juggling, and it's really not a hard one. I think if I could just commit a couple hours to finishing the notes I had. I need Matt to go over it and Mark to go over it. I've also gotten an email from Chuck, I think, with the he runs the American Bird City, and he also asked where the renewal was. So it's always there on like the top 3 or 4 things on my list every day, and I never get to it. So maybe Deb, if you wouldn't mind, I'll send you back what I have, and maybe you can see if you see anything missing, and then I'll send it on to Matt and Mark. Would that be okay with you?
sure. Yeah.
Okay, that'll keep me keep me on task.
Okay.
Good.
And Kelly, just a Zoom meeting format question. Do you need to keep the screen share up, or can we see everybody's faces, which sometimes helps with the back and forth?
Sure.
I mean, you can pop it up when you need it, but the agenda is very brief, so I don't know if.
Yeah, we're going to go into talking about the plan, but yeah, I can do that. I can share it anytime and go back and forth.
Yes. Sounds good.
Hi.
Thanks.
Good. And is there anything
There's
that
no smiling faces.
is there anything we can help with to get it? I mean, everyone I'm sure has a lot on their plate and the juggling everything, but is there anything that besides before the next meeting that we can help with to get things in any direction?
Well, let's see, the bird thing would be really helpful. I don't know what we can do on establishing a plastics committee right now in the business district. A lot of the things I'm wrestling with in my head are just which things are appropriate now, what's everyone's bandwidth now. For us, it's been a good time to work on the comp plan, and I'm sort of buried for the next couple weeks on the solar project. We just received our bid documents from our solar engineer. So hopefully we will advertise the 3 installations on municipal buildings starting May 8th, and then we'll put it out to bid and hopefully get a bid awarded by the end of May, which is really exciting to be moving forward on that. And I feel like we should move forward very quickly because I'm worried about the city not having as much money in the coming year or 2, or being hesitant to spend anything on anything. So I want to get that project through as quickly as we can. So I understand there's going to be a lot of tightening of the finances, which is totally understandable, and also helping the business community. So as far as helping, I think the sustainability plan might be something we could work on and break it up, although I don't know if now is the time to have that conversation. But Richard, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, the single-use plastic thing, I mean, it was on the news not that long ago about how Dane County is just worrying about their landfill filling up with all these plastics coming in. So it's a really important, hot issue that's getting attention. So I think we should definitely take this on and not put it off.
That would be great. I would love to. I would
So
love.
how do we move forward on it? I mean, I was even surprised reading over the minutes that Spence and I forget who else was meeting with this one person So I had forgotten that, or so I'm not even aware of where we are with it and what we as a city and a sustainability committee can and should be doing.
After we met with the chamber, we walked away from it saying, she said she could introduce us to the top businesses who use plastic or the top influential people within the chamber. And she said, we just kind of said, let us come up with a plan first. We need a subcommittee to come up with a plan. Like we had initially approached them thinking this could be an initiative that comes out of the businesses as opposed to the city pushing this onto people. And I think it can be a joint venture, but we just have to have like that game plan when we approach them and say, what is it that what do we want to do? What do we want to achieve? And how do we do it where it's not like, we're saying you have to do this, but let's come up and make it coming from the people, right? So so let's do this on the next agenda. It looks like Kelly's typing it down here because that'll be a good topic for a lot of an agenda next time.
Yeah, because it just seems like the county must be wanting to push this, given that they made a big deal about they're running out of landfill space. I mean, I think it was on 27 News that I saw this, picture of all the plastic garbage being dumped out, and so it would seem like that ought to be some county push on it too that would come down into Middleton.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Good idea to make it an important agenda item for next meeting.
Yeah. Good. All right. Should we move on to
may I suggest when we talk about marketing of the city, I think I have two suggestions. The first one is I think the slogan of the city. I remember it's a good neighborhood city, right? I think probably we can add something to signal people. This is a city very, very care about sustainability. That's something maybe we can focus on. The other thing is I think I still remember when I arrived in Middleton the very first time when I moved from Indiana. I think the most impressive thing to me and attract me to stay in Middleton is the conservancy. So if something we can, like the bird city and also the conservancy, the kind of idea put into the marketing, like activity or something, I think that probably would be another idea we can pursue in the future. Just 2 cents.
I think that's great. I think with when you look at if we meet with tourism coming up, I think when I think of tourism's job, it's like it's the marketing of the city, right? To the outside. So I think that'd be a great thing to do, to have a brainstorming team, kind of team up with them and say, how do we call ourselves a conservancy city, or whatever we call ourselves, it's good.
I think this is pretty impressive in my view. And when I live in Evansville, Indiana, and they also have a lot of trails, but nothing like our conservancy here in Middleton.
Great.
Yeah.
Cool. So on that note, let's you want to share the screen again and bring up the presentation for not presentation, but the report for the conservancy?
Sure.
Pheasant Branch. So I don't know if you had an idea how to frame this, Kelly, and how we were going to do this, but so there's a huge, it's like 107 pages of of this plan. Really well thought out. It was put together by the city, and we hired
Cardinal
to do it. The presentation that was put together was really good. What I thought when they presented to the city, basically it boils down to, when you look at Pheasant Branch is a unique ecosystem, and I'm going to get some of the numbers wrong here because I haven't, it's been a while since I went to the presentation, but the cubic flow of water in Pheasant Branch, I think averages like 4,000 cubic feet per minute or CCFs or whatever the letter is. And during flood stages, it can go all the way up to 100,000. So we're talking a huge amount of water. And again, numbers are not exactly right there. I'm sure they're in the report, and I don't have it exactly, but it's a huge amount of water that fluctuates through there. And when you look at where our bridges are and where the trails are, they don't even hit a 10-year flood levels. So the design was set up. The different options are set up to try to minimize the future damage to what we have, and to also, stop as much water, slow the water down going into the lakes as much as we can, right? So there is stream bank restoration, bridges, trail enhancements, vegetation. They have all these are broken down within the plan. Can you bring up the 3 different plans, Kelly?
Yeah.
And anytime you want to jump in, Kelly, let me know. I'm just really summarizing it. Basically, if you wanted to have it hit, I think it was the 100-year floodplain, your bridges have to go across the top of the conservancy, was my takeaway. So the thought is our bridges are not sustainable. It's costing us millions of dollars to do these bridges. I know people have a very affection towards the bridges and keeping things the same. So you have one option to keep things the same, which don't hit the 10-year floodplains, if I remember correctly. And the extreme is to bring it all the way across the top of it, which is not feasible either, right? So when you're going through these plans, they've laid out different scenarios of the path and the bridges, and they reduce the number of bridges. I think we have 7 currently, and I think one of the plans. So the planner and I think some of the city employees had made a recommendation. They felt that, was it Plan C that they felt, Kelly, was the one that was the recommendation?
I think Plan C, and I wish Mark was on the phone because he could just answer all these questions. I think Water Resources talked about maybe a combo of A and C.
Okay.
Yeah, and we don't necessarily have to decide which is the best. Like I think it'd be good to talk about them if people have strong opinions about different ones. I feel like Mark and Matt, and this is speaking for them on the phone, are looking to have would love to have like a general recommendation for this plan, because until they are able to put this out for bid, for RFPs, for the actual work and the design, there won't be a whole lot to react to until you actually see what these different consultants will come back with as far as designs. And then you can start to say, not that, yes, that, and start getting into the details of it. I found that the Pheasant Branch, the Friends of the Pheasant Branch comments were helpful in order to understand even the summary of the whole plan, and what they would like to see in the plan was helpful to read.
One of Dick, we'll get to you in a second here. Just to kind of if there's a generalization, if I can go into the 3 plans. One plan is keeping it more as it is. One plan makes the corridor a little bit wider, and it's a single path use, wider. And the third plan, which is I believe the one that they had recommended, if I'm correct, it had 2 paths separated with a space in between for more infill for water. Switching the trail on different sides of the bank, where like part of it has already been done up by Cromery, because that was eroding towards the school. So there's a big section of Cromery which holds more water above there. So that's kind of the general idea, is less river crossings. So here's This is Plan B, right? Or no, Option A. Okay, existing alignment of the trail, kind of a cross section, native plants, quarter. Then if you get to B, 3 bridges. How many bridges were in Plan A?
I think it says 5.
Okay, and I'll open up to comments here in a second. But as I think what we would like to do, whether we make a recommendation for each plan, because we don't really have the presentation. I'm not doing it for justice, I'm sure. But I think when we are making recommendations, do we want to, we can make a recommendation where they focus on sustainability. They could focus on use. They could focus on certain floodplains, certain, what is it that is our priority within the sustainability committee? And I said, like, to move forward with a plan, you know, just as an example, that keeps the most water run out of the lakes, and to have the most infill. I mean, there's a lot of different options we can do here, but I think we aren't going to get one exact plan unless everybody has read it and feels good about it. But I think a general opinion would be my suggestion of what we make a motion on at some point tonight. Dick, you have a comment?
Yeah, I mean, I went to the meeting, so I think that they've done a pretty good job, because this is a really difficult corridor. I mean, there's been many attempts over decades to try to stop the erosion with those big wire basket things they put in. And I know back in the 70s when I first came to Wisconsin, it was a big problem. One of the things that I think is good about the bridges is that they are putting deeper footings in farther away from the bank, so that the bridge would have a lot more stability. The thing that concerns me is that they're only talking about the 100-year rainstorm, but that's really a little over 7 inches. And that's not a very big storm anymore. And so one of the things that I thought the Pheasant Branch Conservancy folks raised, and I mentioned it at the meeting itself, is that, you know, you could spend a whole lot of money, which is all these good ideas about fixing this thing, but if we're only designing it for a 7-inch rainstorm, we could lose the whole thing again. And I think that some of the work they've already done is critical to fix those places that are already eroding and getting that done. One of the things I would like to see us recommend is that, along with way the Pheasant Branch Conservancy folks did, is to really start prioritizing work upstream to try to figure out ways to hold back water. So we could design the whole channel, make it look nice, have double paths, have better bridges, you know, all this habitat modification, getting rid of invasives. But if we're not resilient in how we do this, and talk about, well, we'll do the water retention or infiltration stuff later, then we put all this money, and it's a massive amount of money. If we fix this thing up, but we haven't done the upstream work, then it could all be lost. And so I really like the recommendation that the Conservancy had, is to really prioritize, along with the phases of work that they've outlined here, to start identifying how are we going to prevent another flood. And I'm not talking the 11-inch of rain that we got that really washed it out, but they're concerned that the bridges would have water up to them, and would they stand up to a 7-inch rain? So that was a main concern of mine.
So, Katie.
Sorry. I think the part of the report that I really thought was impressive was, I think it was Plan C. They did some drone pictures of the pinch points that they could find in the water, and they kind of redesigned the way the water would flow, and that really sold me on that plan. And as an alder, I get to listen to constituents' concerns about the trail, and the comments that I've had in the past about, you know, people trying to take a little walk with their dog and then the bicycles are zooming by. The double path definitely is appealing in that way. But I do agree with the friends and with Dick that, you know, being concerned about north of the trail and how the water is coming in is definitely should be a priority. But that's my takeaway.
It's good. And I mean, if we look at it, at some point that dam broke up by Hertz Donuts and behind there, that the retention pond. So it was even more of a disaster, right? I mean, there's multiple things that went wrong that day with it. But I mean, I think I would agree. I think the upstream is definitely important. Getting rid of some of the pinch points. Maybe our recommendation is that sustainability would recommend looking at the whole corridor and upstream of the corridor with a focus on maximizing the dollars spent for to make it align as much with the largest flood annual flood retention possible, as in trying to say, if we can only plan for a 100-year flood, let's plan for it. If we can plan for a 200-year flood, let's do it. We can probably get some language in there encouraging them to plan for as large of a rainstorm as possible, right?
I just want to, okay, so I think we're all probably in agreement on the fact that this work needs to be done. I guess the question is, how do we put our recommendation together so that we don't just completely put all our eggs in the basket of fixing this up and the trails look nice. And I agree, option C is the wider floodplain so the water has a place to go. But it's still not designed for much more than the 100-year rainstorm, which is a 7-point-some-inch storm. And I think we really need to be aggressive. So I'd like to know where the Water Resources Commission is on this, because they're the ones that are coming up with the ideas about the North Fork retention and infiltration. I had a talk with Greg Fries probably a couple months ago about how they're using soccer fields and ball playing fields, and they're actually putting artificial turf on them with major retention capacity underneath the turf. So I think there's a whole lot of things that could be done and should be looked at seriously. And I'd just like to see us recommend that work be done as this plan moves forward, so that we're not doing it after the fact and maybe it won't get done with any urgency.
I like adding that to it. Deb, did you have any, since you're on the Pheasant Branch board, is there anything that is extra special that you'd want to mention?
Well, nothing that's extra special, but I agree with Dick. You don't want to spend lots of money to put together something that will fail in the future. And we're going to have larger and larger storm events in shorter and shorter time. And with all the storm water, that's a receptacle for all the storm water in the city too, and the creek. So that's why you have these flash floods, because it goes from, very little to massive amounts all at once. And so I totally agree with Dick that they need to do whatever's necessary to have resiliency built into the plan, not just fixing the plan, so it's back to looking nice. As I think Katie said, I like the idea of all the native plants. I think this is a good opportunity for the city to get volunteers to help with the restoration in terms of the plantings. The Friends have really focused more on the county They had a better relationship at one time with the county than they do currently with the city. And so I think, and Matt, let's see, I think it was last fall, I had a couple of classes of the high school kids helping with some of the work, seed collecting in the city. And he says, we really need to do more of that. And I think in this plan, there's a lot of areas of reseeding and taking out invasives and things that could be done with a large group of volunteers. And I think the people in the city of Middleton are very willing to volunteer to help the Conservancy because they love the Conservancy.
I think you were talking about removing invasives. I think one of the things that we didn't mention that's in the plan here is the damage to the trees that happened through this corridor is something like 80% of the trees have to be taken down regardless. And I know that was a touch point for a lot of people because people love the trees, the tight canyon feel of everything. But there's so many of them are damaged or barely hanging on that it's dangerous. And so regardless, trees are coming out, and this isn't a city decision, this is a safety decision. So replacing it with what that makes sense I think is a great thing. Any other comments before we try to craft some sort of recommendation for the forum?
One question I have that's kind of related to the topic we're addressing of how do we make this sustainable is, right now it looks like there were 6 or 7 bridges under the current trail. The proposals they have cut it down to 5 bridges.
It's only 3 in this one.
Why did the plan have to stop cutting it down to 5? I mean, how low could we go? Because it seems like those are a major source of expense, the bridges, and a major source of long-term survivability in the face of flooding. Is there any option that could be conceived of to change the path so that we can get rid of more of those bridges?
Right. So this option C, as you see on the screen here, it has 3 bridges. So that gets it down. I know there are people within the city who feel very passionate that there should be more.
Okay, that's right, 3. Yep.
But there's 3 in this one, and what they're trying to do is keep it on one side of the path for longer, which I think is also going to help long-term cost. If they only can plan for a 100-year flood of a 7 and a 7.5 inch flood, if they take out bridges, 3 bridges are a lot less to build than 7, right?
Right.
Right. So
can we go lower, or what kept it to 3?
I don't know.
I don't think that they were trying to put bridges as for aesthetics reasons. I think the way I understood things is that there are a few places there they just, because the way the channel kind of meanders around with the slopes of the bank and stuff, they just need to have the path switch sides of the stream in order to be able to have any kind of a path at all. So I think what Spencer is saying is that this one option is, with this broad floodplain, is that they were able to cut the bridges down by broadening it out in some places. And so I don't think there's any interest to have more bridges. I think, yes, they would have none if they could.
So I think along that path, if our recommendation has something about using science and ecology to do this, because at the meeting, I think Mayor Gurdeep was at the end said something about wanting to have more bridges in there, right? And I think that comes from citizens wanting to have the aesthetics or the traditional look of the place. So maybe our discussion is, our recommendation is to use the best possible science with the priority of stormwater retention, safety, long-term costs to the city in mind, using sustainable or native plants, and and creating a, you know, with the thought that this is a place people are going to enjoy also, and to, I think the 2-path option with less pavement and more space for things to come is a good option, but that doesn't necessarily have to be part of it. Anybody want to try a stab at a proposal?
Well, I think that's what you just said was really good. I would just kind of add that we want something that's going to be resilient and that would minimize the risk of all the investment we would put in here. And so having more bridges adds a lot of money, and for only planning for a 7-some inch rainstorm to be able to hold up to, having fewer bridges lowers the risk of all the costs that we're going to spend in this thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Kelly, I don't know how close you're taking notes exactly what I'm saying here. I think if you would want to repeat what I said, I could probably come back with it again. But in addition to that, say in the larger picture of this restoration, we want to make sure there's a lot of focus, public and private, on upstream. There's a lot of private property that's concrete up there. There's also some public parks and stuff that we could probably, like Dick says, with the retention underneath the soccer field or something could be just look at all the options upstream also.
Yeah, can we actually say specifically that we want recommendations of the Water Resources Commission and others on ways to retain and infiltrate stormwater as being one of the high priorities of this whole thing too?
I think that makes sense. Using science and experts, including Water Resources Commission or any other experts that the city has, to minimize runoff and to maximize absorption, to create maximize the number of inches of annual rainfall that the creek can handle safely and with less impact in the future.
I agree with what you say here, Dick and Spencer, that the other commission to take a look and a deeper look, and also provide some feedback. I think that's extremely important. Another idea would be, I'm wondering if our city has other project about conservancy, and they can also like create a synergy with this proposal. I don't know. I'm just wondering if anything like about vegetation or something, the project the city is doing, and maybe can put I don't know if it's like can interact with this project and create like a bigger effect, bigger positive effect on the conservancy. So probably that's.
Can't come in right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a great point. If we just use the language of and collaborate with anybody else who is working on projects that can maximize the return on investment.
Well, I mean, I'm almost wondering if we're starting to talk like, is the city getting the cart before the horse if we're spending a lot of money on this downstream area and haven't rectified or re-engineered the upstream that feeds this downstream area. Again, the question being asked, is there something already going on that we should be encouraging or focusing on? And if not, would it be worth going around and saying, okay, before we do this work, which is going to be at risk until we address the upstream, let's spend some time and money rectifying and remediating the upstream sections.
Kermit, I think that's a good point, but this is FEMA money. a lot of it. I don't know how much of it is, but
Yeah.
this is for the restore.
They pay to restore, to repair, not to upgrade.
So I think we emphasize the fact that we want to collaborate with above, but I wouldn't put a kibosh on anything that they're working on to start out with, because getting this fix is going to substantially help everything else, even if it's not perfect.
Yeah, the other thing, I'm based on what Kermit just mentioned, I'm also thinking about the order of the projects, because I don't know what kind of other projects that's still going on or is going to take effect at the same period of time of this proposal, timeline. I'm thinking about the order of projects. So, I mean, if like one project say that we need to dig a hole here, but the other and then they done, and then the other project come, and then they also want to dig the same hole, and the kind of like overlap, the projects. So, I think we as a city can, put projects together and see how could we minimize the, we can enhance the effectiveness, efficiency, and also maybe some cost saving too. I don't know, because I do not have all the projects idea of the city. So just kind of like a thought.
Yeah, I think a collaboration would be great. Hey, Kelly, would you, in order of time, I know the meeting was supposed to be 6:30 to 7:30, so we got about 8 minutes to put this together. Would you want to just read some sort of draft that we might have and see if we want to add or subtract, and then kind of make a vote on our motion if we want to?
Yeah, I'll try.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. And we can also, I think, list our recommendations. It doesn't have to be like one beautiful statement that says everything.
Okay.
They're looking for feedback too. So we could recommend the plan in general, but we have these recommendations that we'd like to push forward as priorities, or like we can structure it maybe that way and then list our things.
Yeah.
I have what you said, Spencer. I have that we recommend that the city follows the best possible science and ecology to ensure safety, affordability, while using native plants, minimizing the risk of this investment with perhaps fewer bridges, while also providing recreational opportunities for people. And I had put the 2-path option, that we like that, but we can, that was your initial statement. And then I also had from Dick that we would like to see the recommendations from water resources for waste.
Well, I still think we need somehow to put in there that we also prioritize, while the plan can move forward, but we feel that we should also be prioritizing work upstream to to reduce the amount of runoff that would come from what is considered now the 100-year rainstorm, which would basically, if you can reduce the amount of runoff from a 7-some-inch rainstorm, then basically you're increasing the flow capacity of the system. Well, you get less runoff down through the system for the same amount of rainfall,
right,
which then minimizes the risk of a 100-year rainstorm.
Right. So I think, Kelly, will you finish did you have a few more notes? Like, if it doesn't have to be one grand statement, we kind of have that statement, and then we say the priorities we want to are the goal to minimize runoff, to focus on upstream to help prevent problems, to collaborate with other projects that are already going on in the city, public and private, to minimize the runoff and maximize the absorption into the ground. Is there anything else to add to it that is something that sustainability says we should have as a priority in this plan?
Instead of saying absorption, maybe say infiltration.
Yeah, I changed it to that.
Yeah.
I'll read this back and then maybe you can help me wordsmith it. But so after those two, let's see. That was about all I have. I'll read it back to you really quickly as my additional comment would be that I think the city should also look at, and the sustainability committee should maybe look into this, new construction building guidelines where anything that's built upstream needs to comply with a much stricter set of rules. Like maybe I know we can't require certain things because we're hamstrung by the state legislature for what the city can require, but maybe we could incentivize or I don't know what all the levers we can pull, but to incentivize 100% stormwater management for the runoff on site and also green roofs, things like that, because I know just from hearing Ken Potter speak and the water resources, there's not a whole lot of, there's no real magic bullet like, oh, if we could just get this plot of land or these 3 plots of land, we could infiltrate all the water. It's so far gone on the development and all the kettle ponds that we've filled in mostly in Madison, actually, not even in Middleton. And then north in the upstream north of us, there's not a ton of great opportunities, but I feel like we need to have like a broader policy going forward that any new development that does go in has to manage its stormwater better. I don't know, things like that. Those are policy things that the sustainability committee could be pushing in conjunction with this plan, with this work.
Kelly, would that include like pervious pavement for, runoff, so instead of asphalt, you have something that, can accept the water versus trying to drive it down a pond again?
Yeah, and I've talked a bit to Ken about this, and he's kind of our resident expert on that. And he said all those things do work, but they are very site specific. So you have to be careful with how you, would want someone to put in pervious pavement. In some areas, it may not actually be the best thing. It might,
Okay.
a green roof might be the best thing, but then in other places, the pervious pavement would be the best thing. So I do think that's something that as a committee, we ought to look at. It's very timely, I think, to think about how will we develop any more development now that happens. How will we develop?
I think that's great. Add that in, and along the same lines, farmland preservation. I mean, farmland is not always great for runoff, but it's going to be better than a parking lot, right? So I think the overall picture of future development, more stringent guidelines for to keep water retention on the property would be great.
I mean, this is stuff that really sustainability plan should be outlining, this is the kind of broader policy stuff that we should be promoting in the plan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, you can work it into this motion or whatever we're trying to approve, and I don't disagree with it. I'm just thinking if you get too broad, then it doesn't really fit with our recommendation for this particular thing.
Right.
I think that all fits underneath when we talk about upstream issues. So we are now at 7:30.
Okay.
Do you want to one more read it back, and then someone will make a motion on, someone will second if they like it, and we'll have a vote.
One extra thing, and that is when you brought up the pervious pavement, this is recommending that you not use pervious pavement. So I think if you're going to add that piece to our response, then we're not saying that we're going with the recommendation to go regular asphalt, because that's part of this is saying that they don't want to use pervious pavement.
And yeah, that's a great point. In my opinion, I think we go with the experts' recommendation on it. I know their impervious pavement has its limitations because it fills with leaves and dirt. It's not going to be
Right.
good, and it's expensive, and it degrades quickly, right? So if they have other plans, I think where appropriate might be the right term to put in there. Where appropriate, upstream to use it. Okay.
Or just indicating that, you know, looking at other options. I think that's fine.
That's great, Chris.
Yeah.
All right, Kelly.
Does anyone want to help me then craft like our first statement, which would be to, you know, recommend the plan moves forward, and then, you know, just that first general statement. I think that Matt and Mark really want this plan in some form to be approved at the next council meeting, so that then they can continue the work, because it's had to go through all these committees, and that's great. But now they want to, you know, move it forward. So what's that statement?
So is it something like the Sustainability Committee supports the recommendation of the plan?
Yeah.
And
But
then we
I
ask
think we
for
can-
these.
The Sustainability Committee in general supports the overall plan with the recommendation of option C, which minimizes bridges, but that we are further recommending that attention and priority also be given to upstream, minimizing and reducing upstream runoff to help reduce the risk of failure of all the restoration that would be finished with this new plan.
I think that's a great start.
I like that, Dick.
Okay, so do we have the recommendations that we kind of went through? Dick, do you want to have the motion on that one?
Okay, I'll make a motion on it.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, any more discussion? Everyone feel good about what we're voting on? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, unanimous.
Great, that's wonderful. I think that's very similar to what Plan Commission said in their meeting on this week sometime. They recommended the plan in general, but also recommended that the council take into consideration what water resources was talking about with upstream management, I think, something like that.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Thank you guys for everyone making this extra
Good.
meeting. Kermit, since I see you're not muted, can you want to make a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
All right, Dick, you're not muted either. Is that a second?
Yeah,
Okay, all in favor. Thank you, guys.
Aye.
aye.
Bye.
thanks
Thank
so
you.
much.
Bye.
Good job, Katie.
Spencer. Good
Spencer.
job, Kelly.
See you guys.
Good night.
Bye now.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.